Logan opened the garage door before dawn, like he did every morning, the chill of the early hour seeping through his threadbare jacket. The town was still asleep, except for the distant bark of a stray dog and the quiet rumble of an old delivery truck passing by. Inside the small garage, dust motes danced in the glow of a single hanging bulb, casting shadows over stacks of tires, rusted toolboxes, and a cluttered workbench that held more memories than money. Logan loved this place because it reminded him of his father, who taught him how to fix anything with wheels. He wiped his hands on an oily rag and checked the day's list: 2 lawnmowers, a busted chainsaw, and a neighbor's squeaky bicycle. He'd survived the week, but rent was always one step ahead of him. Logan wasn't one to complain, though. He took each small job with the same quiet dedication that made folks trust him when no one else would. He heard the sputter of a weak engine and turned to see an old minivan roll to a stop right outside the shop, its front bumper held by duct tape and hope alone. The side door slid open slowly, hinges squealing like they hadn't seen grease in years. A woman stepped out, her hair tied back in a loose bun, jacket 2 sizes too big, eyes sunken with worry and fatigue. Logan noticed how carefully she moved, glancing back at the passenger seat. That's when he saw her, a young girl, maybe 9 or 10, her legs thin and motionless in a battered wheelchair. One wheel wobbled so badly it seemed a miracle it hadn't fallen off altogether. Logan's heart squeezed in his chest. He put down his rag and stepped forward, nodding politely. "Morning, ma'am. Something wrong with the van?" The woman hesitated, her eyes flicking between Logan and the child. "No, the van's fine. It's her chair. The wheel's about to fall off, the brake sticks. They said it'd cost thousands to fix properly. We don't have that." Her voice cracked on the last word, the desperation plain in the way her fingers clutched the car door. Logan looked down at the girl, who gave him a shy smile that cut right through the grease and grime of his day. He knelt down so he could see her face better, ignoring the chill seeping through the concrete. "Hey there, what's your name?" The girl's smile widened just a little. "Bella." Logan nodded. "Hi, Bella. I'm Logan. Mind if I take a look at your ride?" Bella giggled at the word ride and nodded eagerly. Her mother opened the door wider so Logan could gently wheel her down the tiny ramp he kept for hauling engines. He pushed the chair inside the shop, the rattling wheel squeaking like a rusty hinge, begging for oil. Inside, the smell of grease, rubber, and old gasoline wrapped around them like an old blanket. Logan wheeled Bella up beside his workbench and gently lifted her so he could flip the chair over without disturbing her fragile frame. He noted the rust, the worn-out bearings, and a brake lever that was one hard pull away from snapping clean off. "This chair's been through a lot," he murmured, half to Bella and half to himself. He caught the woman's eyes, so tired, so hopeful it almost broke him. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Grace," she said, hugging herself against the chill of the unheated garage. Logan gave a small nod. "Grace, don't worry, I'll fix this." She opened her mouth to argue, to tell him she didn't have money, but Logan had already turned away to rummage through a shelf stacked with old bike parts, lawnmower wheels, and a box of random bolts that he never threw away, because someday they might fit something. He'd grown up watching his dad do the same, patching together miracles from other people's scraps. He found what he needed: an old BMX front wheel bearing, a brake cable from a kid's scooter, and a can of blue spray paint so faded it looked almost grey. He looked at Bella, who was watching him like he was about to pull a rabbit from a hat. "What's your favorite color?" he asked her. "Blue," she answered without missing a beat. Logan grinned. "Good choice. Let's see what we can do." He set to work, rolling up his sleeves, the cold forgotten as he fell, into the rhythm of bolts, bearings, and careful adjustments. Hours passed. Grace sat on an old stool near the door, her hands wringing the hem of her sleeve, her eyes never leaving Bella, who sat patiently, quietly, only breaking her silence to ask Logan questions about his tools or to giggle when he made silly faces while tightening stubborn bolts. Logan replaced the bearings, realigned the frame, swapped out the brake lever with an old bicycle part that fit just right with a little modification. He even tightened the upholstery so Bella wouldn't slide forward when the chair stopped suddenly. When the wheel was back on, the brake tested and tested again. Logan wiped his hands and looked at Bella. "Wanna test it? Out?" She squealed with delight as he helped her settle back in the chair. He gave it a gentle push, rolling her across the garage floor. The wheels glided smoothly, the brakes responding like they were brand new. Bella clapped her hands, her giggle echoing through the dusty old shop, filling every corner with a sound Logan hadn't heard in a long time. Pure, simple joy. Grace stepped forward, pulling a thin, wrinkled envelope from her coat pocket. "Please, at least let me pay you something. Anything. This means everything to us." Logan held up his grease-blackened hand to stop her. "Grace, keep your money. She needs this more than I do." He looked at Bella, who was spinning in careful circles. "Take care of her, that's payment enough." Grace's eyes filled with tears that glistened in the weak afternoon sun streaming through the garage door. She tried to speak but only nodded, swallowing words that stuck in her throat. Logan helped Bella and Grace back into the minivan. Before she closed the door, Bella leaned out and hugged Logan's neck as best she could from the seat. "Thank you, Mr. Logan," she whispered. He smiled, ruffled her hair, and stepped back as the old minivan rattled away, disappearing down the cracked road. Alone again, Logan watched them go until the dust settled, and all that was left was the echo of a promise that maybe, just maybe, good things still existed in this small, forgotten corner of town. The next few days passed like any other. Logan patched up a lawnmower, tightened a neighbor's loose fan belt, and fixed a battered pushbike for a kid down the street who paid him with fresh peaches from his backyard tree. He didn't think about Grace or Bella much. He just hoped the chair would hold up until she outgrew it. But late one Friday afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the diner sign across the street, Logan heard the unmistakable hum of an expensive engine. A sleek, black car rolled up to the curb in front of his shop, the kind of car that made people turn their heads, though in this dusty part of town, no one was around to see it but him. The door opened, and out stepped Grace, but she wasn't in the same faded jacket and worn sneakers. She wore a coat that looked like it cost more than Logan made in 3 months. Her hair was styled, her makeup subtle but perfect. Logan wiped his hands on his rag, heart thudding as Bella jumped out behind her, the bright blue chair still rolling smooth as silk. Bella rolled straight up to him and threw her arms wide for a hug. Logan knelt down, scooping her up carefully. Grace stepped forward, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "Logan, we didn't tell you the truth." She glanced at Bella, then back at him. "My husband was the founder of Larkspur Tech. When he passed, I stepped away from the company to take care of Bella. I didn't want pity or special treatment. But that day, you gave us something no one else did. You gave us kindness without expecting anything back." Logan's brows furrowed as he tried to understand. Grace reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope thicker than any paycheck he'd ever held. She pushed it into his calloused hand. "This is yours, and this—" She gestured behind her. A black SUV pulled up, the back opening to reveal a sleek, custom-built wheelchair with chrome accents and cutting-edge tech. "We want you to run our new foundation. You'll fix and build mobility chairs for kids like Bella, all expenses covered. You'll have a shop, staff, and anything else you need." Logan stood there frozen, Bella hugging his neck, Grace standing in front of him with tears streaming down her cheeks. The sun dipped lower behind them, casting golden rays through the open garage. Logan glanced around. The cracked floor, the peeling sign that still read Dad's Shop in faded paint, the memories lingering in every greasy corner. He knew in his bones this was his chance to carry forward what his father had taught him. You fix what's broken, not just with tools, but with your heart. He looked at Grace, then at Bella. He didn't need to think about it long. He just nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat as Bella squeezed him tighter. For the first time in years, Logan felt like something bigger than his little garage had finally come to life. A promise that good work, done quietly and freely, would always find its way back home. Logan stood outside the old garage that night, long after Grace and Bella drove away in that sleek black car. He kept replaying her words in his mind, trying to wrap his head around what had just happened. A foundation, a new shop, a chance to help kids like Bella every single day with resources he could never dream of on his own. He looked down at his calloused hands, the same hands that had once struggled to keep the lights on in this place. Now they were his ticket to build something that truly mattered. He slept in the garage that night, an old blanket draped over him while he lay on the workbench under the hanging bulb. His father's old cap sat next to him, a quiet reminder that sometimes life's biggest changes come from the smallest kindnesses. When dawn broke, Logan brewed his cheap coffee in a dented tin pot and walked out to watch the sun rise over the cracked sidewalk. It felt different now, brighter somehow, as if the future had cracked open to show him a glimpse of what could be if he just kept saying yes. 2 weeks later, Logan stepped into a building he'd never thought he'd own. It sat on the edge of town, a wide space with clean white walls, rows of workbenches, lined up like soldiers waiting for orders. There were brand new tools, still wrapped in plastic, shiny metal shelves ready for parts, and an office in the back with a desk he could hardly believe was his. The sign outside read, "Bella's Wheels Foundation, Restoring Freedom 1. Wheel at a time." He read it twice every morning, afraid it might disappear if he blinked. Grace met him there that first day, her hair tied back in a practical bun, a clipboard in her hand. She looked more like the CEO. Everyone said she was. Sharp, focused, but warm when she spoke to Logan. She introduced him to the first families lined up at the front door. Parents with kids in battered chairs, walkers, and makeshift braces that should have been replaced years ago. Logan shook every hand, knelt down to greet each child eye to eye, making them giggle when he called their wheels their hot rods or supermobiles. Every day, Logan came in before sunrise and left after midnight. He worked alongside 2 new apprentices, teenagers from town who'd dropped out of school but knew their way around a wrench. He taught them what his father had taught him: how to listen to a squeaky wheel, how to find parts no one thought could fit, how to treat every job like the most important thing they'd ever fix. Word spread faster than he expected. Soon there were families driving for hours just for the chance to meet the man who could make miracles out of scrap metal. Bella became his shadow whenever she wasn't at therapy or school. She'd sit on an overturned milk crate next to his bench, asking questions about every tool, every bolt. Sometimes she'd hand him a wrench before he even asked for it, giggling when he told her she was better help than half. The boys he'd hired. One afternoon, Logan found her scribbling designs in an old notebook. They were rough drawings, all bright colors and impossible shapes, but he kept every single one pinned on the corkboard above his desk like trophies of what hope looked like. Grace handled the business side. The contracts, the donors, the endless phone calls with manufacturers and city officials. But she always found time to sit with Logan at the end of the day, coffee cups in hand, talking about how they could reach more kids, help more families. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence, watching Bella zoom down the new hallway in her upgraded chair, laughing so hard it made every long day worth it. Grace would glance at Logan then, a soft smile on her lips, as if she still couldn't believe what his simple act of kindness had set in motion. By Christmas, the foundation was a buzzing workshop. Logan's apprentices worked on a special project, a new set of braces for a boy who'd never walked, without pain. Logan guided them every step, making sure they measured twice and cut once, teaching them to see more than just metal and bolts. He told them, "You're not fixing chairs, you're fixing futures." They didn't understand it at first, but the day they watched that boy stand straighter than he ever had, They got it. They felt it in their bones, the same way Logan had when Bella first rolled across his dusty floor. One night, after everyone had gone home, Logan sat alone at his workbench, flipping through Bella's notebook. One page caught his eye, a wild, colorful drawing of a wheelchair with rocket boosters and wings. In the corner, in Bella's crooked handwriting, it read, "For kids who wanna fly." Logan chuckled, wiping at his eyes. With the back of his hand, he didn't know how to build wings or rockets, but he knew how to build hope, and maybe someday hope would be enough to get those wings off the ground. As winter turned to spring, the local news came by for a story. Logan hated them and cameras. He'd always been a man who let his work speak for him. But Grace convinced him, saying the more people knew, the more families they could help. So he stood there in front of the news sign, hands stuffed awkwardly into his pockets, Bella perched beside him like a tiny PR manager with a grin that wouldn't quit. He stammered through the questions, talking about bearings and cables, but the reporter only cared about the bigger picture, the quiet mechanic who'd given kids a chance to move, play, and dream. When the segment aired, donations poured in. People from across the country called the shop, wanting to volunteer, send parts, or just say thank you. Logan's phone rang until the battery died. The local schools invited him to speak, which made him sweat through his only decent shirt. He stood in front of classrooms full of kids, telling them about his dad, about Bella, about the day a busted wheelchair changed everything. He always ended the same way. It's not about fixing what's broken, it's about making something stronger than it was before. One warm evening, Logan found himself sitting outside the garage after closing. Time. The big rolling door wide open to let the spring breeze drift in. Bella wheeled up beside him, munching on a popsicle Grace had bought from the corner store. "Mister, Logan, do you think my rocket chair would really work someday?" she asked between bites. Logan smiled, looking up at the sky streaked pink and gold. "Bella, with you dreaming it, anything's possible." She grinned, leaning her head on his arm. They sat there together, watching the sun set over a world they'd rebuilt one wheel at a time. As the weeks passed, Logan noticed how the community changed too. Kids who'd once hidden their old, squeaky chairs now rolled through town with pride. Their new rides painted in bright colors with shiny wheels. Families who'd given up hope found it again inside the walls of Bella's wheels. Local shops dropped off spare parts without asking for payment. Retired welders came by just to lend a hand, teaching Logan's apprentices tricks only years of mistakes could teach. It was more than a shop. It was a promise that no one would be left behind if he could help it. One rainy afternoon, Grace found Logan hunched over a new design for a modular wheelchair that could grow with the child instead of being replaced every year. She watched him for a moment, then quietly sat beside him, her hand brushing his on the paper. "You know you've changed so many lives, right?" she whispered. Logan shrugged, embarrassed as always when praise came his way. Grace squeezed his hand tighter. "Mine too," she added. Logan looked at her then, really looked, and saw not the billionaire widow or the polished CEO, but the woman who'd believed in him when he had nothing but an old wrench and a promise. That night, Logan locked up the shop, the new sign shining under the streetlight like a beacon in the dark. He thought about his father, about the tiny garage where this all started, about Bella's laughter and Grace's quiet faith. He turned the key in the lock and stepped out into the cool night air, knowing deep down that no matter how much bigger this got, he'd never stop being the mechanic who fixed things for free when someone needed him most. Because sometimes the best payment wasn't money, it was hope. And hope, Logan knew now, was worth more than anything money could buy.